The family who called me a receptionist didn't know I was the chief neurosurgeon who saved a government official's life. I stood quietly in the corner of my parents' crowded living room, holding a glass of sparkling cider that had long since gone warm in my hand. The annual Chin family holiday gathering was exactly what it always was: loud, overwhelming, and filled with unspoken competition. More than 70 relatives packed into a house built for 20. The aroma of roasted duck, ginger, and expensive perfume floated through the air, mixed with something far less pleasant. Judgment. Double quotes. Emily, sweetheart, come over here. My mother's voice cut across the room like a knife wrapped in silk. She stood beside the grand piano, surrounded by Aunt Sarah, Uncle Robert, and several cousins I only saw during family events. The smile on her face looked warm to everyone else. I knew better. That smile meant humiliation was coming. Tell everyone about your new job, she said proudly. My stomach tightened. I had been waiting for this moment since the second I walked through the door 3 hours earlier. I work at Metropolitan Hospital, I answered calmly. Mom laughed, not a joyful laugh. The other one, the one she used whenever she wanted to turn my life into a joke. She's being modest, she said. Emily answers phones at the hospital. It's not exactly what we imagined after all those years of education, but at least she's employed. A few relatives gave sympathetic smiles. Aunt Sarah gently patted my shoulder. Well, dear, honest work is still respectable. Not everyone can be successful like your brother. Right on cue, my older brother David appeared, wearing the confident grit of a man who had spent the entire evening reminding everyone how much money he made in real estate. Still working the front desk, he asked, laughing. Hey, somebody has to handle the paperwork, right? I don't actually. She's always been humble, Mom interrupted. She never let me finish. She never had, for 6 years. I had stopped correcting them, not because they were right, because it was exhausting to explain my accomplishments to people who had already decided I had none. They had convinced themselves that their daughter, the one who spent 8 years studying medicine, completed one of the most demanding surgical fellowships in the country, and became one of the youngest department chiefs in history, was nothing more than a hospital receptionist, and they never once asked enough questions to discover. Otherwise, the insults continued around me like a familiar storm. How much do receptionists make these days? $30,000 a year. Maybe less. It must be difficult watching everyone else move ahead. I remained silent, not because their words didn't hurt, but because I had learned long ago that defending myself only gave them another opportunity to dismiss me. Then my pager, the IBRATED. Once, twice, 3 times. The pattern was unmistakable. A medical emergency. I pulled it out and looked at the screen. Code black. Presidential trauma. Chief of neurosurgery required immediately. Every thought disappeared. Every insult. Every painful memory. Nothing mattered except the patient. Someone was dying, and I was the only surgeon available. Who could save them? Emily, are you even listening? My mother sounded irritated. We're discussing your future. I looked up. I need to make a phone call. David shook his head. See, no ambition, no focus. She answer a phone call before she takes career advice. The irony would have been funny under different circumstances. I stepped away and dialed the operating room. This is Dr. Emily Chin. Give me the situation. The line immediately became silent. Then a frightened voice answered. Chief, the patient is the president's chief of staff. Ruptured cerebral aneurysm. Secret Service is bringing him in now. How long? 7 minutes. I began walking toward the door. Prepare R1. Full neurology team standing by. Get Dr. Martinez ready to assist. Nobody begins treatment until I arrive. Yes, Chief. My relatives had gone completely quiet. They were staring. Confused. Uncertain. Mom frowned. Emily, who was that? I have to go. What emergency could a receptionist possibly have? Dad demanded. Before I could answer, my phone rang again. The caller ID displayed the hospital executive director. I answered immediately. Dr. Chin, thank God. Director Harrison said, "The Secret Service is requesting you specifically. I'm on my way." A moment later, another call came, this time from the Secret Service. Chief Chen, this is Agent Morrison. We need confirmation that you will be performing the procedure. Confirmed. The room became silent. David's confident expression vanished, and Sarah looked like she had forgotten how to breathe. Why did he call you Chief? Jennifer whispered. I slipped on my coat. For a moment, I considered explaining everything, explaining the years of medical school, the endless nights during residency, the hundreds of surgeries, the research, the awards, the life I had built while my own family laughed at me. But someone was dying. There wasn't time. I work at the hospital, I said. Then I walked out. Behind me, I heard David say quietly, "Why would the Secret Service call a receptionist?" The drive to Metropolitan Hospital took 11 minutes. By the time I arrived, Secret Service agents were waiting at a secured entrance. Within minutes, I was scrubbed in. The patient had suffered a catastrophic aneurysm rupture. Every second mattered. The operating room was silent as I stood over the patient. Let's save a life. For the next 5.5 hours, nothing existed except precision, a human brain, a damaged blood vessel, and the responsibility resting in my hands. Finally, after hours of delicate work, I placed the titanium clip that stopped the bleeding. Clip secure. I announced. The room released a collective breath. The patient would live. When I left the operating room, a government official approached me. The president asked me to thank you personally. Dr. Chen, I simply nodded. I was too exhausted to feel proud. I was just relieved. Hours later, I returned home and looked at my phone. 43 missed calls, 67 messages, every one of them from my family. The news had finally revealed what they had ignored for 6 years. Dr. Emily Chin, chief of Neurosurgery, one of the country's leading brain surgeons, the daughter they called a failure. My mother called moments later. Her voice trembled. "Emily, the news says you're a neurosurgeon." "Yes. Why didn't you tell us?" I closed my eyes. The question hurt more than every insult. "I did." Silence. 6 years ago, I told you I became the youngest chief of neurosurgery in hospital history. I don't remember exactly. I told her how every achievement had been dismissed, how every surgery was ignored. How every success was compared to David's latest business deal. Then I said the truth I had carried for years. You didn't want to understand me. You wanted me to fit the story you had already written. She cried. She apologized. But some wounds don't disappear because someone finally notices them. The next morning, my entire family arrived at my apartment for the first time. They saw my world. Medical journals. Awards. Research certificates. Photographs from conferences around the world. Proof of the life they never bothered to ask about. "I'm sorry," David said quietly. "So am I," my mother whispered. I looked at all of them. "I didn't need you to be proud of me after you discovered I was successful." My voice softened. "I needed you to respect me when you believed I wasn't." No one had an answer, because that was the part they could never deny. Before leaving for the hospital, I stopped at the door. "Remember something?" I said. "The next time someone tells you what they do for a living, listen. Respect them not because their title impresses you, but because they are a person." 6 months later, I stood before the entire Chin family again, only this time my mother introduced me differently. "This is our daughter, Dr. Emily Chin, chief of neurosurgery." There was no mockery in her voice. No embarrassment, only pride. After my speech, my youngest cousin walked up to me. "Can I become a brain surgeon one day like you?" I smiled and knelt beside her. "You can become anything you choose." Then I added the lesson it had taken me years to learn, and Never allow anyone, even family, to make you feel small for becoming exactly who you are. My mother looked at me from across the room. Her smile was different now. Not perfect, not a magical ending. Just a beginning. And sometimes a beginning is enough.